All right. Good morning, everyone. Dai-Shihan Miller. Um, so, just to correct a little bit of, I don't know, misunderstanding, uh, the live that I did last night, Sunday, uh, caused some confusion. Right? I got messages in the chat. I got emails. People wanted to know when I decided to change the schedule for Kuden, the weekly podcast. I didn't, right? So, for those of you who jumped on late, at the very beginning, I did make the announcement that that was not a Kuden. It was not like a regular training class kind of thing. It was just a discussion. And so I'm going to be doing a couple of those over the next couple of days here. And who knows, it may continue on. I'm definitely going to need to get a haircut here at some point. Way too stragglies. Anyway, uh, yeah, nothing's changed, right? Kuden is still Monday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern, so no worries there. All of these things are being recorded as well. However, there is a bit of a imperative deadline for something that I am offering, but just again bring up my notes because I don't want to miss anything here. All right. So there's just some things that I need to get off my chest, so to speak, and they're all kind of things got set in motion here a bunch of weeks ago, where I literally needed to free up some time to get back to my own study, get back to my own research, right? I mean, just because somebody hits a certain rank level or whatever doesn't mean that we know everything. It doesn't mean that we're done. It doesn't mean that we've got it all figured out. This is a process, right? This is a journey. It's not a destination. And so after I had heard the interview with one of my teachers, Shoshi Malmstrom, and something he said about how teaching can, if we're not careful, right, it can derail a teacher's own progress, right, an advanced practitioner's own progress. And now he mapped out his, the reasoning for him closing his school, being done with teaching, that kind of thing, and accelerated progress. He estimated 10 years of progress in like 2 years. And so, we're all, well, I'd like to say we're all on a journey. Those of us who are in a certain mindset are on a journey, right? And uh, not not getting our fix can be stifling. But there's a huge difference between learning and going to class or collecting, who knows, videos, lessons, whatever, right? And actually being on a journey, especially in an art like ninjutsu, right? That is a composite system. Yeah, there's combat in there and whatnot, but that's only at best a third, at best a third of the training, right? That goes for Mikyo, that goes for Kuji, it's like the physical aspect. It doesn't make up a third. I'm being generous, right? But there's also the training of the mind and how we look at things and how we see things and how we process and translate things, right? And then there's also the perception and connection and these what we might call uh, spiritual qualities, but that doesn't have to be woo woo, right? I mean, that's like the experiential stuff, right? And all of these things, right? They all cross over. They all affect different things. Anyway, so um, I've kind of jotted down some things that I want to just do some short discussions on. Okay. Last night's I planned for 45 minutes. It ran an hour and a couple of minutes. So these are not podcast episodes, right? I guess they could be, but they're not, right? And so I'm going to try to keep this one a little bit shorter because I have an absolute full day to to do other things that I need to work on. Anyway, so as a part of last night's discussion, which was focused on why people quit too soon, one of the things that came up was this commonly used reason, or commonly used phrase. And I know there's lots of reasons behind it, but it was centered around um, one of the forms of quitting. Right? I had to. The phrase is I had to stop training because life got in the way. Right? And life got in the way could be replaced with whatever the because statement is. And here's the thing: a lot of folks that contact me that want to get quote unquote back into training um, are already feeling the pressure of time, right? I mean, I don't know that I'm feeling the pressure of time, but I do recognize that I have less, right? In January, I turned 62. Okay. So at this point, shit, most people have canes and they're visiting the doctor more than they're visiting family members. Um, so I consider myself quite lucky. But at the same time, I'm also very, very grateful to this art and not just lessons, but directions that I got from teachers that were way, way more than just techniques and skills, which is where people tend to focus, right? So um, that if you caught the meme that I put out with this one, right, and I'm going to use it quite a bit, right? It says this path isn't for tourists; it's for lifers. Okay, and I'll talk about that here in just a couple of minutes because there's something that I teach as a part of our accelerated instructor training program in their level 1 uh, introductory course. Uh, my instructors need to uh, learn more skills than just the skills they're going to be teaching students on the floor. Okay? How to be a teacher, how to help students get over their own mindsets. And speaking of mindsets, right, how to recognize where somebody is at different phases so that we can guide them to the next level of transformation, transcendence, evolution, pick a word, right? But let's get back to this thing that I had originally discussed last night, and that is this whole idea of life getting in the way. And I can certainly I can certainly relate to life doing its thing, right? Because life has gotten in the way of me making it to Japan. Has gotten in the way of me making it to a teacher, right? I've never lived close to a teacher, so anybody that says distance training doesn't work, video training, I would have given my left nut back in the day, even before the first VHS videos came out, right? Because that's what a lot of us had to tie us over until we could get to a seminar or whatever. A lot of us were in the military or law enforcement. I happen to be in military law enforcement, and other things that getting away and scheduling things like that weren't easy, right? Coupled with family and all those kind of things. Okay. So, I've had the wife being pregnant to, like I said, military or other job pressures, requirements, mandates, those kind of things, finances, all kinds of things. Um, but these things never stopped me from training. Right? Why? Well, it's because training wasn't a hobby. It was part of who I am, right? And I had a serious why behind it. Uh, and we'll talk about this hobby thing here in a bit. But um, again, I've been talking about this since last week's Kuden, where I drew the lesson from some of the stuff that I've been rereading in Hatsumi Sensei's book, Ninpo Wisdom for Life. Highly recommend it, right? It's not going to entertain most people because there are no pictures, especially there's no pictures of like martial arts techniques. And if there are, I forgot. Anyway, because that's not what my focus is. But in it, uh, and over the years, right, there's this hard truth that Soke has pointed out over and over again, as well as other teachers, right? And that is that hard times are the best times to train, right? And yet, for most people, that's the reason for not training, right? Pressure and stress and job and scheduling and okay, so and right, we're supposed to be training to handle really bad shit. A lot of pressure, a lot of stress, the potential for being maimed or worse, right? Or, having to protect my family while the attack is going on, or interceding as a protector, right? Whether I was as a cop or, the time I had to um, get in between somebody who had attacked my wife and put him in a position in less than 2 moves. Anyway, sorry. Memory took me back to a moment. Anyway, so um, again, I want to keep these things fairly short. So the point here is that true training is what happens when you don't have perfect conditions, right? Because it's not just the techniques that we're training. It's mindset, it's endurance, it's the ability to go on, it's the ability to act when we don't want to, we don't feel like it, right? It's not the best time, it's not the perfect time. Well, I didn't like to hear it when my teacher said it either, but there are no perfect times, there are no best times. If I could just get past this thing, that I can start. Oh, okay, well, what happens if you get attacked this week or between um, now and then? Or how many arguments are you going to be in between now and then? Or how many relationship issues or stress moments, or how many pushy salesmen? They don't have to be trying to sell you a couch or a car or whatever, right? Anybody in our lives that are psychological manipulators, right? They're coming across as high pressure salesmen, right? Because they're trying to push their agenda, right? They want you to say yes to whatever it is that they want, regardless of how much uh, discomfort or whatever you have to endure, because all that matters to them is that they get what they want, right? Anyway, that being said, right? So, first thing I'm going to discuss today is uh, this idea of training as identity versus training as an activity. And I think that by and large, most people involved in martial arts or anything like this, right, they see it as an activity at best, right? But what kind of activity is it, right? Is it something that's a hobby? Is it something that it's kind of a recreational, fun thing to do, right? Or what is it, right? But this identity versus activity kind of thing, right? And so, to expand on what I discussed last night, right? The trap of getting back to training, right? This idea of I got to get back to training, right? I really want to get back to training, right? Implies that training was optional. Right? And I know these things are not always easy to hear, right? Um, but we either have a responsibility for our own safety and the safeties of those we're responsible for, or that we say we are, right? We're responsible ultimately for the attainment of our goals, our dreams, our aspirations, those kind of things. We're individually responsible for navigating the pressures and obstacles and shit in our own lives. Okay. I said it last night. I'll say it again. Life's messy. Okay. But if training is something that you can start and quit, then it's not the why is just not strong enough. It's not imperative. But not everybody starts training like gung ho and committed, and they're going to stick to it no matter what. Right? And I get that, right? Which is why my instructors get this framework. We'll talk about this here in a bit. But um, for the serious practitioners, right? Training never stops. It never leaves. It adapts, right? We're supposed to be learning how to adapt, right? So the training itself adapts as well, right? Hatsumi since I've been talking about this since I started training, right? It used to always say, if you're in your 20s, train like you're in your 20s. If you're in your 30s, train like you're in your 30s. If you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s, or whatever, train like you're that age, because that's what you are. I get people that are lamenting, not going to be able to do what I used to be able to. Well, no shit. You just told me that you haven't been training for 20 years. Right? One, right? If we had a different relationship and you weren't just, not you, but the person emailing me or having this conversation, because I treat people that are not my personal students very differently, right? People just come to seminars or whatever, right? Very, very differently. Okay. Because otherwise I would have said, why the hell haven't you been training for 20 years? Okay? Well, I don't have time. Really? Okay. And this gets in the way with people that want to be meditating and stuff like that too, right? I don't have 20 minutes or a half an hour or whatever, multiple times a week to sit down and meditate. You don't understand, right? I'm a doctor. I'm a this. I'm a whatever, right? And so I have no free time. Bullshit. Okay. Um, you can still make time, and I don't mean 20 or 30 minutes, right? If I'm finished with this and have to go to the restroom, I won't be resting. But anyway, if I have to go, right? What's stopping me from stealing a couple of seconds here or there multiple times throughout the day, right? I go to the bathroom, or if I'm out somewhere else, I go to the restroom. There's nobody else around, right? What's stopping me from doing shifting into kamai, right? Ichimonji, a couple of times one way, a couple of times the other way, do my business, wash my hands, do another kamai or two, or practice a strike or two, like one or two times. Walk back out, get back to my life. It took me what? All of 15 to 45 seconds. Right? And if I do that multiple times a day, you find that I actually practice more than somebody who is doing, and I never believe that people are like, I don't work sensei, and I can practice 3, 4, 5 hours a day. Okay. One, get a life. Two, get a job. And three, whatever. Right. So, the training adapts, right? If you think that I was practicing my taijutsu after I broke my back a couple of years back and was in intensive rehab, right? I was in a facility and couldn't use my legs, right? But that didn't stop me from telling the doctor, look, I can't function, I can't think with all these pain meds going on, right? I have a very high tolerance for pain. So can we just negotiate that if I absolutely need it, or you think I'm bullshitting you, you can give me some. Otherwise, I can't function and I've got shit to do. And I let my wife know, look, I need these 3 books. I need a notebook, right? Preferably one of my new ones, where they're kept. And I need my laptop, right? Because that allowed me to catch up on reading or rereading and note taking and finishing up some other things that had to do with either helping students or my own study, right? And in that case, my training had to adapt, right? The training was meditation or reflective training coupled with pain management, right? Breathing, relaxation techniques, those kind of things. And when it was time for physical therapy, and the reason why I chose the intense rehab center that I chose was because the amount of occupational and or physical therapy was about twice as much as, or maybe even 3 times as much as I would get in just like a regular nursing and rehab kind of place, right? That means that the pain was much higher, but that also means that I needed to focus on endurance. I needed to focus on persevering. I needed to focus on focusing, right? And then because the legs didn't work, right, as I healed, I had to get things back in place and whatnot. It allowed me to focus on balance. It allowed me to focus on some coordination things that I hadn't done for a while, right? It allowed me to practice mindfulness. So training doesn't stop. Training changes. Okay. Um, anyway, so and here's the thing, right? It was certainly true for me. You may not always be in the dojo, but your mindset, your practice, and your commitment, these things don't disappear. The distinction, the distinction between external form and internal connection, right, is is huge, right? I mean, uh, techniques are these mechanical things that carry lessons, right? So it's not about how many we've collected, it's about how deep we've gone into each one. And then can we make the mindset shift from, let's say, Ichimonji no kata as a physical defensive ideal? A single attack comes in, we neutralize it, break balance, and deliver a finishing blow in a 1-2. It's done, right? Can we dig into that, get to the root principles and concepts, right? That we are receiving and neutralizing this attack so that it has no force, it has no effect. Controlling them, breaking their balance and whatnot, and targeting a specific point that completely shuts them down, right? Can we translate that into an argument, or having to deal with somebody who's just in a blind rage, yelling and screaming at us, right? Or the psychological manipulator, right? Ichimonji is Ichimonji. Ichimonji no kata is Ichimonji no kata. It's just not somebody who's yelling and screaming at me, or is trying to emotionally upset me or whatever. It's not going to be physical, right? Do we know what that looks like as a psychological defense, as an emotional defense, spiritual defense, that kind of thing, right? But also the external training, right? It's not just to train the physical skills, right? We're surrounded by examples all the time, right? The human body will eventually fail and fall apart. That was a big part of Shoshi Malmstrom's interview with Paul Massey as well, right? That he was good up until about 70, but after 70, the body's not doing it's not doing as much as it used to, right? And it's actually, there's little glitches in the system popping up. And so guess what? You adapt to that, because if you're jumped, or you're being threatened by somebody, physically or otherwise, right? Your age, your physical condition, people see that as a detriment, but how do we adapt that, right? So anyway, right? So my point here is that this is not something that I do. It's so much a part of who I am that I can't not do it. It's kind of like breathing. Okay, I could choose to stop breathing, but if I do it long enough, I'll pass out. My body will start breathing again, and I'll wake up feeling not only stupid, but feeling all the bumps and bruises from the shit that I ran into on the way to the ground. Right. So it's not an option. Right. But this idea of having to get back to training implied that it was optional. Right. And it was easily replaced by other things. Right. So I've been talking about this mindset and this transformation, evolution kind of thing. And this is something that is one of the key lessons that students who go through my instructor training program, because they either want to be an instructor in the future, or they're at that level where they're doing it now, and so they have to go through these. But my instructor training program isn't about teaching them like how to teach the techniques. They are teaching the techniques, and they're not going to teach anything they don't already know. So my instructors are aligned with student levels. So that's pretty simple, right? And that kind of speaks to a mindset that goes on in the martial arts that doesn't go on. Well, I can't say it doesn't go on anywhere else, but it probably does. But it wasn't my experience in the military. It wasn't my experience in law enforcement. And that is that once somebody gets a black belt, the assumption is they're qualified to teach, which is bullshit. All that black belt means is that they've learned specific skills and gotten to a point where they can demonstrate proficiency, right? Based on the standards for that level belt. That has nothing to do with a completely different skill set, which is communication and conveying information to others in a way that those others understand and can grasp it quickly and move on, right? So it's not the same. Okay. So my students have to learn things like how to pre-frame or reframe somebody so that their own mental blocks don't get in the way of their own progress or the way they see a technique. And, they convince themselves that they'll never get that. It's too confusing. I can't learn that. My memory sucks. I can't. Right. So how do we do that? How do we control the flow and structure of a class based on age appropriateness or we'll call it rank appropriateness, even though what I mean is level and experience, right? It's all kinds of things. Okay? So it's not the same. But one of the lessons that students get is that there are three mindsets that students could be in. They're in one or another, right? They're not in two of these at the same time. There's one or another of these three, and they could come in with them from the outset, or they could transition through things as they have certain experiences or learn certain lessons or develop certain levels of confidence, that kind of thing. And so the lesson that the instructors get is we have two paths that we could choose to take, right? There is a third path, and that's the path of ignorance, but you don't choose that. If you choose that, that's anyway, that's something else. So the one path is to let students just do it on their own, which is fine, right? But the other one is to understand the mindsets, recognize them in particular students, and then help the student by doing certain things, help the student transition from one level, one type of mindset to another, with the third mindset being the goal. Okay. Is it going to work on everybody? Nope. Okay. But if we don't do it, then it's kind of a crapshoot. It's kind of like Shoshu Momstrom taught us a long time ago, that we may be learning skills that, you might stop and scratch your head and go, when would I ever need to use that? But his answer was always, I don't know. But if you don't put it in, it's not coming out. Where he would say it in his Georgian accent, right? If you don't put it in, it ain't coming out, right? And that's the truth. Okay. So I would rather, it's kind of like in combat handgun training, right? I teach students to count rounds. Right? Eventually, it becomes more of an intuitive sense, right? But I teach them to count rounds, regardless of whether or not they're going to be able to do it under pressure. And the reason I teach them to do that is because if I can leave one round in the weapon during a reload, given that I've bought the proper type of firearm and it doesn't have a magazine safety on it, or whatever, right? I can leave a round in the chamber and be able to engage a hostile threat during reload. It gives me an extra layer of safety. Otherwise, under pressure, I have to do the reload, get everything seated, and either drop a safety that lets that slide go forward because everything's been locked back, right? As soon as the last round is fired, right? So that leaves one in there. I can slide that magazine in, pull the trigger, fire the ones in the chamber, and it keeps the cycle going. Otherwise, I have to at least hit a safety catch that allows the slide to go forward and racks that first round. Or if my weapon doesn't work that way, or something happens under pressure and it doesn't lock back, now I have to rack the whole thing before I can get back into the fight. Okay. So It's a surprise to a lot of students when I say I would rather drop that magazine, like have this intuitive sense of how many rounds I fired and drop that magazine with a round or two still in it, right, during a reload to keep one in the pipe than to have that weapon lock back and go inert because there's too many fine motor skills that might have to be needed depending on the level of pressure, right? So, um, but my point with that is if I don't put it in, it's not coming out, right? If I don't work it, I don't get the benefits or at least partial benefits of that thing. Okay. So again, let's take a look at these three martial artist mindsets. We'll call them. And again, I teach these in my AITP program, Accelerated Instructor Training Program. Right. So these three mindsets we call hobbyist, recreationalist, and lifestyle or lifestyle orientation. Right. And that doesn't mean what a lot of people think it means. Right. So here's what I mean by this. Right. The hobbyist mindset. Let's think about a hobby first. Right. A hobby is this pastime, this thing that we enjoy doing, right? Like one of mine is building scale models, right? Another one is drawing or sketching, right? Certainly not an artist by any means, but and lots of people have other things, right? My wife likes doing like glass work, right? Like stained glass work and flower arranging and arts and crafts and those kind of things. But that's not just what a what a hobbyist does, right? If we think about hobbies, hobbies are things that we enjoy doing, but we do it when we have time. Okay. And that's what happens with a martial arts hobbyist, right? I train when I have time. Okay. That's the thought. That's the words that come out, right? I train when I have time. Okay. So in this mindset, martial arts is a casual interest. It's an interest. And this person may even argue that no, I'm sensei says, like, as long as you're doing something, then you're training. No, you could. I've had people show up for Zoom classes where everybody in the world that was on or in a future that's where they're watching the recording is going to see this person sitting, staring at a screen, topless. Sorry, no women, right? Smoking a cigarette, whatever, no thought, right? That person's not training. That's not they may think they're doing research and all that, right? But they haven't gotten up off the chair. They haven't moved around. I've got people that show up, do the exact same thing, the same type of training, right? Show up in full uniform, right? Very little sleep because they're not missing class, and at least do the movement solo while they're working through things. Ask really good questions, those kind of things, right? But let's not confuse watching martial arts on TV. That includes YouTube. That includes there's shit on Netflix and Prime and stuff now, right? So let's not confuse the equivalent of watching martial arts on TV with being in a learning mindset that we're applying as though we actually showed up for class. Huh? I don't care that you're in the program, and I don't care that you signed on and you sign on regularly, right? I have to trust that you're practicing when I'm not looking at you, but I can certainly see that if you showed up for class the way a lot of people show up for a Zoom class and sat around or constantly interrupted with jokes and all kinds of, and it's not that we don't joke and have a good time in class. That's not the thing, right? As long as it's on topic. But if people showed up that way, half the freaking class would be laying around on the floor or sitting and spinning around in a chair or looking like they were a 6-year-old with ADD. Anyway, I'll get off my little I don't know, my soapbox. So The point here is that the hobbyist mindset, right? These folks are easily sidelined by stress, by schedule, by inconvenience, right? I worked a double shift today, and like I just want to go to bed. I don't have time to train. You don't understand. Um, I do understand. I understand those pressures and whatnot. I understand what I'm withholding and what I'm delaying skill wise from myself, from those who depend on me should some bad shit happen, and from the world. And what I mean by the world is other people who may need help and I'm not capable yet. Right. Um, and then the other thing too, and I mentioned this last night, right? Instructors often mistakenly try to please or bend for students like this, right? Um, th- this is more often than not, right, where people are when they start, right? So I see this is an important step for entry level experience, but it's certainly not the end goal, right? These people um, are enthusiastic when they start, but they actually uh, quit sooner. They complain or kind of try to sidestep standards and requirements faster, more often, right? It's not the same. Okay. So that's a hobbyist, right? Well, then what's a recreationalist? Right. Ah, okay. So a recreationalist, they could have a hobby, but they could also have an activity, right? Uh, could be the gym, could be running, could be like my wife's arts and crafts, could be for my wife. I think she sees, I think she sees cooking as a recreation. Although, um, nah, I don't see that either. She's actually in the third category, which we'll talk about here in a minute, where if she doesn't do something in a certain amount of time, right, she feels like there's something missing from her life, that kind of thing, right? But anyway, we're a recreationalist, right? So this is somebody who has something that they enjoy doing, but they enjoy, or they not only enjoy it, and it could be challenging, right? It could be painful, whatever, right? But instead of only doing it when they have time, they make time to do it, right? So this person, instead of saying, I train when I have time, this person says, I make time to train, right? Which is why, like when somebody first starts at the school and they fill out, we call it a student application outwardly, but inwardly, the instructors know that we call it a PEF, a prospect eligibility form. Okay. So there's certain key questions on there, right? Do you have a place outside of the classroom or outside the dojo to train, right? Can you commit at least 15 minutes a day on days that you're not coming to class for practice? So it's like 15 minutes, right? And again, but sensei, like you already said 20, 30. No. Okay. 15 minutes, and you can steal seconds and minutes throughout the day. It doesn't have to be 15 continuous things, right? Depends on what your days are like. Okay. But another one of those questions is uh, is can you conveniently schedule your life, right, to attend class at least twice a week, right? 2 1 hour classes a week. If not, then how the hell are you going to practice if you don't have enough time to come to class just 2 days a week, right? So there are these questions, right? And some people think that they're unfair, and people do the best they can. Yes, they. I don't know that people do the best they can, because for most people, they don't rise to their potential, right? They sink to their level of comfort. And that's not the warrior path. The warrior path is by its very nature challenging and uncomfortable. But then, getting run through by a knife or a sword or a bullet or whatever, that's uncomfortable too. I guess you pick your poisons. Okay. So here's the thing, right? The student begins structuring life around training as a recreationalist, right? So instructor's job is to get somebody who may have come in with a hobbyist mindset, like this is a good idea and whatnot, but they know that as soon as challenges start happening, as soon as things start to become maybe redundant, or they start hearing no a little too much or whatever, and those challenges start hitting. Because often, like one of the biggest excuses or reasons, I'm sorry, I'll use the word reasons, right? For people leaving training is, I need to take time off. I've got this happening, this happening, this happening, right? But it's a lie. Okay? Because they're either bored, or they're not getting their belts fast enough, or this is taking too damn long, or it's too freaking hard, or whatever, right? And so people lie. They come up with bullshit reasons. And then who knows, later on down the line, maturity may kick in, reasons in life. They watch somebody else, get their ass beaten or killed or whatever, and decide, I want to get back to that. Okay. So anyway, so with this shift, right, where the hobbyist, right, well, they say, I plan my life around training. No, you planned your life around the dojo's training schedule. You planned your life around the online Zoom class schedule or whatever, as far as we're concerned, right? But many students don't do that for very long before, I'll catch up on the recording. Now, I've got students that rarely, if ever, do I see them on a Kuden, let alone in a class, right? But they're the first ones to let us know when there's a glitch with a link that we sent out, or the recording's not playing or whatever. And we're talking about within hours, if not a day or two. So we know exactly who, because they live on the other side of the world or whatever, is catching up and training that way, right? So, but here's the thing with that shift, right, where the student makes time, right? They don't, the hobbyist, if they miss a class this week, right, they'll try to make it up next week, or they'll maybe, usually what ends up happening is they just fall behind, right? And then they can't test on time and those kind of things. The recreationalist, they'll call. I can't make it to class tonight. I got this other thing comes up. It really sucks because I like the topic that we're covering or whatever. But we'll be in, or I'll be in. Right, I'm thinking about a mom and her son at the moment. Right, we'll be in on Thursday, and we're going to do our makeup class or whatever on Saturday. But if I can get an extra one in, that'd be awesome. I have a guy who is a member of a church, really committed to that kind of stuff. He says trying to make up for past wayward ways, mistakes. Anyway, he leaves on Tuesday, tomorrow, for Iraq. He's not military. It's a church thing. It's a mission thing. He's on a team. Part of the responsibilities is like security for the church and emergency response, and other ones, like he's been to North Carolina to help those folks down there. He's been all over the place, and this time around he's going off to Iraq, right, for a short stint. And so he's been doubling and tripling up on his classes coming up to this point, right? And I'm giving him access to the online stuff, so when he's over there, he doesn't have to feel like he's missing out on training or those kind of things. So anyway, right, but very, very different. Okay, so for this student, right, consistency improves. Right, they may commit to belt goals or regular class, right, instead of having to abide by the schedule, having to go to class because they know they'll get an attendance call. Hey, hope you're okay. You're not ill or whatever. They don't, so that's the hobbyist, right? The recreationalist, no. Okay. They're going to commit to, these are my days for training. When other things pop up in life, yep, can't help you that day. Go to class. Okay. And if they do have to, because something's an emergency, then they immediately want to reschedule that class because they've got goals, right? This person's still vulnerable to setbacks, without a really deep internal identity attachment, right? This is still something they do. They enjoy doing it. They want to do it. They want to learn more, right? But it's not quite a part of their identity yet. And that's where this third level, right, where instructors nurture these folks. And it's not like we're telling them like, hey, you gotta be a lifer. It's not that kind of thing, right? It's introducing lessons that help a student see a connection between this being something they do or something they enjoy or something that could help them to, wow, man, this could be used in any part of my life. And then things just start to shift and change, right? So, and that's this third level. Why we're called a lifer today, but we just call it the lifestyle mindset, right? Lifestyle oriented. And so, at this level, the mindset is, and if you've been around for a while and you've been connected to me, you've heard me say this over and over again, right? This is no longer something that I do. This is not something that I do, right? When I met my wife almost 20 years ago, right? We're coming up on 18 years here, 24th of this month. When we were first chatting, oh, so you do martial arts? No, I don't do martial arts. Right? I am a martial artist. She didn't understand the difference. And what I said was same thing I tell everybody else. This is not something that I do. This is so much a part of who I am that I can't not do it. Okay. So where the hobbyist trains when they have time, the recreationalist makes time to train, the lifer would say, I can't not train. It's part of who I am. Right? I can no sooner not train in some fashion. I can no sooner do that than I could stop breathing. Okay. This student is on the path, right? Not as a cliche, not as something that I was rhymed, not something that we say, right? They're on the path emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, right? They adapt their training when life gets rough. They do what they can given the scenario, right? And they've made a connection where they're drawing lessons from the physical for application in the not, right? So, what does Ichimoto no kata look like from a financial self-protection perspective? Okay, so these folks, they're looking for refinement, not novelty. They're looking for depth of understanding in the techniques, not number of techniques they're collecting. Okay? So these are the students that we build programs for, right? And they're the students that we build programs with. Right? So for those of you who are instructors or group leaders or whatever, I would highly recommend that you give this idea some thought. And that idea is that your job isn't just to teach technique. It's to help students evolve from one level to the next. Because when we can do that, then like students stay longer and there's more trust and more confidence. And at that point, you're nurturing a dojo family. Like if we use an ancient ninja term, we could say we're nurturing a clan. But it's not just a group of students that just happens to be the an accumulation of the names on the roster this week. Right? So anyway, those are the three mindsets. So to kind of start to wrap this up, right? Again, I introduced this last night. I've been talking to my inner circle guys and girls and the instructors in the dojo and stuff about this for a while. But what I introduced last night is the reason that I'm not chasing maybes anymore, right? I'm not a used car salesman. I'm not here to convince you or convince anybody, right? do martial arts, only $14.95. It's not that, right? But it's not just about the maybes, right? Um, like I said, I'm 62. I don't know how much time I have left, right? I mean, I don't think I'm going to die in the next, 5, 10, 15 years. Um, but, not only is life messy, but life's chaotic, and who knows, right? Um, but there's still levels that I have not only not ascended to, but I also haven't bumped into. And I'm not a dabbler, but I can tell you the dabblers are a huge energy suck. Okay? Because they're going to ask questions, but they're not going to do anything with the answers. So it's kind of like a 3-year-old asking why about something, and you go out of your way to explain it to them. But even though they go, oh, okay. And then they go right back to, chewing on their toes or uh, playing with their toys or whatever, because it was just a question, right? Um, as opposed to students that are fully engaged, that ask a question, I give them an answer, and immediately they're going to put it to use. Okay? And every once in a while, we know just how much that depth helped. Like one of my guys who's a police officer involved in a heavy firefight not too long ago. Okay? Shooting was involved, all that kind of stuff. And when he sent me his little outline, it wasn't little, his little outline of the situation, right? He spelled out all of these lessons that he's learned and put to use, right? A bunch of things listed in the Seishin Teki Kyoyo book, and a bunch of things, right? And can't say there wasn't a thank you that was associated with it, but my job is to teach the lessons correctly and to provide the students with that level of support, right? My job is not to do the work for anybody. And my job is not to coddle. My job is not to uh, it's certainly not to chase after the dabblers and the idly curious. Okay? So again, going back to Shitoshi Malmstrom's interview, um, again, all this stuff was kind of it was like a punch in the face, right? Because I've been talking about it and I've been trying to get things done, but I have been allowing for certain things to happen as well. Okay, so all of this has been inspired by that punch to the face, so to speak, right? Where he said I had to stop teaching people who weren't ready. I had to refocus on myself, and that's exactly where I am. Okay, I love teaching, but I hate teaching the same lessons over and over and over and over again and making the same corrections, often to the same people. Um, like students don't know that when they come to class, teachers can't see who's practicing and who's not, um, or who uses class time instead of for learning time, but for practice time. And I get it. Some people take longer to get something in or whatever, but it's obvious to see who's training and progress is slow as opposed to somebody who's not practicing, and that's the reason progress is slow, right? So that interview, that was confirmation, right? That was a wake up call. And after 40 years, over 40 years in the arts, I mean, if I count from 75, but uh, that was off again, on again, till I survived childhood and moved out of the house. Um, so we'll call it from 1980, right? Um, well, that wasn't teaching time, but after 40 years, I've learned now, you know what? I've earned the right to be selective. Okay? So this isn't about ego, it's about energy. It's about building with those who are ready, right? They're not perfect. They're not, they're not, already superstars or masters or whatever, right? They're ready to commit to a harder path, right? Higher standards, that kind of thing, right? I'm not closing doors. I'm just not dragging people through them anymore. I'm not going to be putting out promotional things like, hey, martial arts is fun. And okay, if somebody needs that, then they're looking for a distraction from life or an entertainment or whatever, not something that will allow them to engage more purposefully with life and to transmute hardship into success. As Hans Sensei points out often, and again, it's in this Ninpo Wisdom for Life book. This training isn't about just surviving and navigating problems. It's not just about enduring or persevering in the face of problems. These lessons are about thriving despite problems. That is a huge difference. That's a huge mindset shift. That's what's kept me going in this art for the past 4 decades, over 4 decades, because it's absolutely useful in everything. So again, I've got this spring thing going on, and I'm opening the doors for some folks that are, the intent is to fully engage, right? So, and then I'm going to close the door, and I'm going to focus on me, and I'm going to focus on them for a while. I don't know if I'm going to do it again in the summer. At the moment, it's probably not going to happen again until fall, maybe even winter, because we've got to get some good forward momentum. And I'm also looking to vet and find people that are a certain way so that I can train them to be instructors and we can grow this thing even bigger. So we can help more people, but we can help the right people, right? So again, path is still open, not for very long, right? So if you're watching, if you're listening, and you're feeling the pull, it's probably because it's your time. So again, we reopened the doors on the Ninpo Masterclass, which is the lowest level. Students get 2 live Zoom classes per week, and I get it. Some people are in different time zones and stuff, and they don't work. They're all recorded, okay, and you can still interact and get questions. There's that also includes 1 coaching call per month with my inner circle folks, and they can tell you the extra lessons and attention, whether I'm doing something around a student's training question or nobody had questions for that week, so I just toss in an extra topic. Right? We have well over 1,500 hours of nothing but coaching calls since 2008. I think I started doing this online stuff. 2007, 2008, something like that. Right. So they get that. There's Ninpo Mastery, which are folks that they want a deeper level commitment, and they're looking to go through the curriculum, and whether they're looking to earn their black belt or they're looking to earn their next level black belt or whatever, just add to what they have. And then we have Ninpo Elite, which is folks who want private mentoring as well. Right. So those are folks that are like, they get full access to all the digital programs we have, plus the curriculum, plus mentoring calls and all kinds of stuff. Right. So, but we're closing things tomorrow night at 8. Right. Not 8. Tomorrow is the 8th, April 8th, at midnight my time, 11:59, give or take. Right. So whoever's in, fantastic. But if you're already in one of those programs, then just know that this is going to be steered heavily based on what I'm working on, not what I think. Now, students are going to get what they need to work on, but the extra lessons and the the direction is going to be heavily influenced by the stuff that I need to work on, right? So again, a little bit of encouragement, no pressure, absolutely no pressure, right? Again, going back to what Hatsumi Sensei taught a long time ago, right? Need to focus on you sometimes, okay? Because when it comes to students, some will, some won't. So what? And I know people don't like to hear that Hatsumi Sensei actually uses terms like that because outwardly tends to present himself a certain way, but he also teaches, or he treats different types of students differently. Okay. So, but either way, if you think this is for you, then step forward, right? If not, then I wish you peace on your path, whatever that is. But the path I walk keeps moving. Okay. So if you are looking to do things, matter of fact, let me do this now because I know that there's a couple folks on live, but I'm going to go ahead and drop the link to the information page for the Nimbo Masterclass into the chat. Where the hell is my chat? There it is. Dun, dun, dun. I'll get back to some questions here in just a minute. Let me just pop this in. Bum, bum, bum. There's that one. And there'll be some emails going out with the links to recordings and stuff if any of you missed any of those. Just see if I missed anything on my notes. Bum, bum, bum. Anyway, yeah, so I'll send that out. You know what? Let me go ahead and do this now. If you missed last night's little conversation or I guess one-sided discussion, although I did answer some, I think I answered some questions or some other points that had come in as well. But let me pop this in for last night's. And again, right, we got 3 levels: Jumpstart, Mastery, and Elite. I know a lot of folks that are following these things are already in those programs. But, you know, if you're looking to level up, get a hold of me. For those of you who are already in the program, I have something for you. Okay. Anybody else that wants to hop in, that'd be awesome. And again, no harm, no foul, right? You do you. You walk your path, I'll walk mine. Let's see. Do some questions here. Jared says, is there any way for someone overcritical of themselves who always overthinks things to get into a proper mind frame to accept mistakes and failures? Yep. I'm walking proof of that. Okay? I have to keep myself in check on a regular basis. Okay? First thing you might want to ask is there a perfectionist in the background calling the shots, right? As in, like, I'm not there already. So is there some kind of imperativeness going on, right? Or is it wrapped around not getting there fast enough or whatever, right? Are we actually not listening to ourselves, but we're actually echoing somebody earlier in our life who shoved that kind of stuff down our throats, right? And here's the thing, right? I know we all want to be there now, but it's not possible, right? And you can't work on everything all the time. The more mistakes you point out, this is something else that I teach in my instructor training program, right? Instructors can often be overly critical where, like, as soon as a student fixes something, the instructor will immediately point out the next thing that's going wrong, right? Or the next thing that's off, right? Instead of giving the student not only time to work on that fix to make sure it gets seated, but to also see, not everybody's enlightened when they come in the door, right? 99.98888 come in the door, not enlightened. And what that means is they do need some acknowledgement and encouragement that, yes, they got something right. Okay. Without feeling inundated by too much critique, right? So when instructors design a class, There should be a primary thing that they're working on, and they're not going to give any student more than 3 fixes for that given class, given that the student probably has something, especially the serious ones, probably have something that they're definitely working on. Could be footwork, foot placement, could be breathing, could be whatever, right? And so um, the problem with being overly critical with ourselves is not much different than a teacher being overly critical, right? If we keep pointing out what they're doing wrong, uh, what we end up doing is putting the person in a position where they could actually just go, fuck it, what's the point, right? I'm never going to get this. Okay? We can, as parents, we can do it to our kids. As teachers, we can do it to our students, right? And that's the last place we want to be. Okay. So we have a thing in the instructor training program. It actually comes from NLP, from neuro linguistic programming. Uh, we just call it PCP. No, it's not the drug. Okay. It means praise, correct, praise. Okay. So when I'm going to correct a student's mistake, right? Now, do I always do it? No, because there's certain levels of training that I know I can get away with. Like looking at a student who's been around for a long time, they're uber committed and go, what the fuck was that? That is the worst I know, right? And so it's a punch. Yeah. So um, they, it's a kick in the ass motivation kind of thing. But right, for a lot of students at certain levels, like in the hobbyist mindset and the recreational mindset, this is used way more often than it is with the people that are in the lifestyle mindset. So praise, correct, praise. By all means, use it with your kids, use it with anybody, right? You're going to make a correction, but ego is kind of set up that anything that comes in that contradicts what it believes or wants to believe about the thing, about itself, about its rightness or whatever, defensive blocks go up. Okay. So the first thing that we do is praise something that they're already doing right. Right. And I never blow smoke up my student's ass. Okay. So even if they're not perfect at the thing I'm going to praise, I might say, okay, first of all, right, footwork is definitely getting better. Right. It could be still a long way to go, but as long as there's improvement, then okay, right? Your timing is getting better, whatever. Okay. Then see that drops the guard, so I can say, okay, but what we need to fix right now to get this so you don't get punched in the throat is XYZ. Okay. All right. So show me, right? Student does it once or twice or whatever. If they fixed it, then I'll go, good. That's good. Okay. We'll keep working on that. I'll give you something later. Keep working this until it gets in the muscle memory. Even if they're still working at it, now they have something that they're aiming for, but they're trying, right? I'm going to say, okay, you understand what I'm talking about? You understand what I'm pointing to now? Yes. Okay, good. We're going to keep working on it. Okay. So it's a soft praise, but it's not a patronizing, like, dude, you're awesome. Okay. But we got to fix this part here, right? So you can be even more awesome. Okay. Show me. And they could do shitty, right? They could do the complete opposite of what you did. And you go, okay, dude, like you're awesome. And then I walk. It's not that kind of bullshit. Okay. It's a way to manipulate, or not manipulate it. Well, I'm manipulating me, but it's a way to navigate the reality that most people's defense mechanism kicks in when they're given critique. And even if they think they're paying attention, they will half-ass filter it, right? And depending on their emotional state or whatever, that could change how they receive it, even from somebody that they like. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of skill sets here that is very, very important, and some of it is about helping a student with a level of confidence or helping to build a tight knit dojo family, right, of people that help each other and want to be there, feel better there than they do in a lot of places in their life, right? Than it is just to teach technique. And a lot of instructors, not that they just don't get it, it's that they've never been exposed to that kind of lesson about part of what it takes to be a teacher. Anyway, so back to this thing with the critical thing, Jared. Yeah. So the first thing is we need to minimize, not lower expectations. We need to minimize the number of things that we're trying to work on at any given point, right? So if I'm working on foot placement in kamae, like my lead foot, heel to toe along the inner edge is pointing at his spine or whatever target I'm aiming for across the room, and my body's in this spearman's or archer's position, nice and profiled. The line between the rear heel, rear foot through the heel of the front foot through the toes at him. Let's say that's the big critical thing I'm going to fix. I'm going to ignore, for the most part, all of the mistakes that I'm making, because if I don't fix that, that's a keyhole no keyhole. That's a fundamental of the fundamentals. If I don't fix that, then everything else is shit, right? If I'm having a problem with the way I use my legs and maneuver or whatever, right? I'm going to take walks. I'm going to focus on that kind of thing. Now, there might be one or two other things that I can fit into that for daily or weekly practice. Like there might be a strike I'm working on. There might be, who knows, a body movement skill. It might be a leap. It might be a roll. It might be a given technique or kata or whatever, right? But this, I know you mentioned the accepting mistakes and failures. Okay, and I'll talk about that in just a quick second here. But for this one, we have to minimize the number of things that we're trying to get good at any given moment. And that's a problem for those of us who have this type of personality type, because like minimizing things means it's going to take me longer, but that's not true. It'll take you longer initially, but the more of these things you get in place, especially the fundamental things, right, the less time it takes down the road to get each new thing, because you know the principles and concepts and you know the process. So it's kind of like rolling a boulder down a hill. Takes a bit to get it started, takes a bit to get that momentum going, but pretty soon you're going to have to run your ass off to chase the boulder, because right, it just picks up a lot. Now, as far as the mind frame to accept mistakes and failures, that's born of an ego issue. We all have it, right? Because again, I pointed this out as to why instructors do the PCP method when they're doing corrections, right? We already think we're perfect. And I know, right, from the intellectual side, ego's justification is, no, I didn't say that. I don't believe that I'm perfect. I know that I'm flawed. Then why do we have these thoughts? Why do we have these feelings, right? Why do we avoid certain things? Okay. If it weren't true. Okay. So we have to recognize the fact that if we're trying to learn something, or we're trying to develop certain skills or a certain level of expertise in any area, right? If we were already perfect, we wouldn't need to come to class. We wouldn't need the instructor. Okay. And how do I say this nicely? Well, I won't, right? None of us are that special. None of us are special at all, right? We're all going to die, right? We like to believe that we are. That doesn't mean that we don't have skill sets. It doesn't mean that we don't have expertise. Okay? But ego likes to present itself like it's better than everybody else. That's where judgment comes from. That's where conceptualization comes from. Okay? We're not that special. And as soon as we figure that out, we might be driven to learn more things that allow us to operate better, to think better, speak better, plan better, act better, to produce better results. Instead of operating like we've got all the time in the world, we don't make any mistakes. We can judge other people without looking at ourselves. And but if we were that person, if we were invincible, unknown, if we were all knowing, all seeing, see, ego assumes itself a god. Right? So keep ourselves in check, right? But it's kind of, I was just talking to somebody about something the other day that had to do with leaders, right? Well, he doesn't make a good leader. hear how he talks, hear how he whatever. Okay. I learned in the military and through law enforcement. I don't have to like my leaders as a person. It's just not a friendship. I don't have to like them. I don't have to like their personality type or whatever. Right. I have to trust that they have my back. I have to trust that they're making decisions in my best interest, even if I don't understand them, even if I uh, think that they're painful or whatever. And I'm certainly not going to borrow somebody else's fucking opinion without having direct experience myself. And that's just different, right? But way too many people gravitate to everything from churches to martial arts schools to you name it. Um, uh, More based on a political decision as to whether they like the minister or the teacher or whatever, um, or if they can get away with their shit to do just enough, um, than gravitating to teachers like I have, where um, they'll let you know every time you come to class you risk dying. Okay, and they will say no more often than they'll say yes, and they'll laugh at mistakes and whatever. Okay, because they've been there. But anyway. Let's see. Hopefully that helped, Jared. So let's see. Richard, it was one of the reasons I've not started up again, moved to a new state, but always on my mind to return. Every day I want to start, but I may be sabotaging myself with fear. I wanted to have the mentally, I wanted to have the mental focus on the practice, even if slow as it was taught to me, is respect to my teacher and myself, but I'm sure it will be soon as I feel the call. Yet funny you answered a question with the feeling of the pull. Yeah. So um, all I'm going to say is no best time, no perfect time, no perfect body shape, right? If you go to that information page that I set up for this kind of thing that we're doing, um, I think the first thing I start off with is, yep, I'm old, fat, and bald. Okay. But I'm not here for beauty contest. I'm not here to look like somebody's belief or image about what a warrior looks like or is like or acts like or whatever. That's not my job, right? I'm here to help people live to that potential. Right. And for anybody that has misgivings in that direction, just recently, right? Not too long ago, Hatsumi Sensei's still teaching, even though he's doing it from a wheelchair, right? Um, Somebody asked him about, Fat Ninja, right? There's all these people running around. How dare they? And I know that I was probably on their list, right? How dare they? And Hatsumi Sensei looked at him and was very, very adamant. He goes, of course there were fat ninja. There were tall ninja, short ninja, fat ninja, whatever. Everybody, this is about a mindset and and the ability to apply lessons that produce results. Did they all have the same job? No. So that question comes from believing that what a ninja looks like a movie character, right? Or well, you couldn't climb a castle wall. I'm 62, right? One, I'd be a unicorn in ancient Japan as far as living this freaking old. Two, um, I wouldn't be in that position, right? I'm a strategic thinker. I'm more in the realm of the spiritual philosophy kind of thing, right? So if I wasn't a Jonin, flat out just hiding in plain sight, and a Jonin can never look like they're somebody that would be a threat to anybody, right? As a matter of fact, ninja, okay, it's kind of like Takuma Sensei, right? When most of the people in his life found out that he was head of the Hagakure school in his obituary. Right? But a lot of people can't do that, right? They need they need for people to know, right? But no. Right? So if I wouldn't have been a Jonin, I'd have been a Chunin, because I'm a very strategic and tactical thinker, right? A problem solver, right? And the days of me being a James Bond like problem solver are gone. Right? The damage to my body, scars and whatnot from almost not dying, right, to arthritis and all those kind of things. No, I would have a different role in the family, that kind of thing, right? So people that have this snapshot image, one day they will be thinking differently too. But to come back around to this thing, and it's something I started this whole talk off with, there is no best time. There's no perfect time. Okay? And every day that we're not doing it, who in our lives are we cheating? Right? Because if they ever need us to be able to step up, we won't be able to. We'll do our best because that's our nature, but we're not going to have the advantage and the abilities that this training gives us. It's not the same. Okay. And how much pain and suffering are we putting ourselves through by continually thinking about I would, if I could, be dead, but it's got to be painful. It's got to be painful. Okay. But the training always gets adapted to you. Doesn't get watered down. It gets adapted to whatever the conditions are. And ultimately, you start where you are. No amount of wishing anything else was different. Right? This is called clarity. It's going to change anything. Okay. So if that means that I'm surrounded by a bunch of old, fat, bald guys and girls, okay, and that's what my close-knit, uber engaged, serious students look like, then you know what? More power to them. Okay. Because there's a bunch of people with six-pack abs and whatnot. And they're doing nothing but techniques. They're doing nothing but skills, making themselves feel all warm and fuzzy. But as far as the depth of this art, they're cripples. So I'm okay. I'm okay. Sorry, Stick song popped into my head. Anyway, all right. So hopefully that helped. I am like over the amount of time that I was going to do this thing for, but hopefully that helped. If you have any other questions or whatnot, pop them into the comments. That's it, on whatever platform you're on. I will try to get things as much as possible. But I'm going to do this again because today's Monday, so that means at 8 p.m. tonight we're doing the regular Kuden episode. So hopefully you'll be able to make it on for that. But I've got to go because I've got to get all the assets and stuff together for that, and all the emails, and get all that stuff sent out so I can do that. And I've got somebody showing up at my house at 2 p.m. To finish work on our furnace that went out a week and a half ago. So we've been adapting and using space heaters in my house until they can get the parts in and get back to getting the heating unit working. So anyway, that's what I have. Hopefully I'll see you on board in some direction, but again, no harm, no foul, right? If you feel the need or feel the drive to step up, by all means, love to have you. And if not, again, right? I wish everybody peace on the path that they choose for themselves, right? So that's it. I will talk to everybody again next time, right? Be safe. If you train hard. I'll talk to you later.